What's going on, guys? Evan the Xenogears Enthusiast here, bringing you another gameplay commentary for the Xbox 360 version of Dark Souls. This is going to be the next video in my installments of the Elly series of gameplays. In these videos, I sort of walk you through the development of this character, the acquisition and creation of valuable items, or rare items, even if they're not going to be used on the character, and the acquisition of any item that might see use in the character's final revisions and builds. This character's still in flux. I've got the stat build pretty planned out, but there's still some question on what kind of final item she's going to use. I found out some things recently. I'm always finding things out about this game, like assumptions I have that turn out to be untrue. I was under the belief that weapons do backstab damage, of course, and they get different modifiers. I thought the Bandit's Dagger, the thief's starting weapon, had the highest backstab damage in the game. But I've been doing some investigation on the Dark Souls wikis. People have done actual tests with weapons. A lot of people are going to put a lot of time into testing out these assertions and assumptions. I've realized that, of course it's true that if you have a powerful enough weapon, the modifier isn't as important, because if you have like a Black Knight's Greatsword, which is an enormously huge and damaging weapon, that can outdamage the dagger, modifier aside. But you have to put the stats to wield it, and this character wants to stack more points into Faith for miracles. So as a result, she really can't afford to use those heavier weapons, because I need to stay around soul level 120 to 125. That's the understood max value for player versus player. There's no actually built-in game in the rule. You can go to whatever level you want, whenever you want. But for player versus player, there's like limits on enemies above and below your level. So if you're hoping to find duels with people who are actually interesting to PvP, I mean, you can grief invade, but if you're looking to PvP with people who actually are looking to PvP and have PvP characters and everything sort of on the up and up and fair, then you need to stay around 120 to 125. Even then, it's no guarantee you won't run into somebody who's basically going to cheese you, but still, that's pretty much the understood way to do it. And with that, you have like a limited number of stat points. It's, Dark Souls is an interesting game where you stomp whenever you're ready. Theoretically, you can max every stat on your character at like soul level 700-ish, but that would be a really long gameplay, and I won't be going that high. 120 sounds like plenty for a single character. I might eventually try to do, like, just to chase some achievements, I might do a character that will try to go much higher than that. Completing the game over and over actually does have benefits, even for PvP characters. That's largely because eventually, well, not eventually, but you can buy like miracles and spells from vendors, and in New Game Plus you keep all the spells you learned, but you can buy them again. So you could have, if you're a Faithcaster, Wrath of Gods will no doubt be one of the most powerful weapons in your arsenal, and you can probably stack that as many times as you're willing to complete the game. So, while I wouldn't want to have all Wrath of God and nothing else, 2 stacks of Wrath of Gods would be really nifty, because you only cast it 3 times per stack. So I'd probably put 2 stacks in my spell list and then mix it up with some other odds ends. This character is actually going to take a lot of time to put together correctly, because I'm going to have to go and gather a lot of different miracles from a lot of different covenants, and they all have different level up procedures, and I can only be in one covenant at a time. So it's just going to take me a while to go into a covenant, basically jack all of the useful miracles out of it, then try to go for another covenant. I changed the human form to summon Solitaire because I tried to bring him into the boss fights to keep him alive. That way I can get a Sunlight Medal off him. In this fight I'm going to fail. Solitaire will die. But, what can you do? Sorry to cut out the commentary there, I just kind of wanted to let you guys enjoy the Gargoyle entry scene, which isn't nearly as impressive as like the intro, but, whatever. Fighting the Gargoyle is just a matter of staying behind him and avoiding the flight attacks. You can shield block almost all of his attacks. These guys are really easy. If you want to cut off the tail to get the axe, now most people probably never use the axe, but you might as well pick it up anyway. Solitaire is actually a big help in this fight, because if you would ever actually land one of those lightning spears, they'll do a lot of damage to these bosses. I don't know if they're weak to lightning, but I know it hurts a lot. Once you get the first gargoyle down a lot, the second gargoyle shows up, and starts spamming Fire Breath pretty much the entire fight. Now, Solitaire here, he sort of draws a lot of aggro, which makes it a lot easier to get in and get attacks on these guys, but you have to be careful because that actually has a pretty large arc of attack, and they cover each other, see? Like, I can't move in right now to attack because of the fact they're covering each other. And Solitaire has terrible, terrible AI. I love the guy. He is probably the friendliest and only really helpful NPC in the game, but unfortunately, he just doesn't fight well. I mean, he runs right into fire over and over. So I'm chugging flasks here and getting blasted by the fire constantly. I should have equipped a fire-resistant shield. The boulder shield is more of an anti-physical shield, has good stability, but doesn't really work beyond that. I also am not using the Drake sword. Using that would have really helped me out there. I think I have the stats to two-hand it, but or at least I could have gotten them because I'm going to 12 dexterity at least for a rapier. But I didn't do that, so Solitaire goes down. No big deal. Sunlight metals are not a finite resource. You can acquire them numerous places in the game. You only need 10 to get the Covenant to the level you need to get any actually tangible benefit. I think you need a ton of them to get to like +3 Covenant level, but most of the rewards stop at level 2. You might notice that Elly is rocking a slightly different attire. That's a full Baldur's set. Still rocking the Astora sword though. The reason that is I spent a lot of time farming the Undead Parish, grabbing some quick humanity, things like that. Not a big deal really. I won't commentate all the farming because sometimes I can spend maybe an hour farming in a particular area. And that just wouldn't be exciting to commentate or exciting to watch. And it's not significant in the character's development other than the fact it's just basically working out. It'd be like if they were televising the bye week in football. It just doesn't happen. I hope that made sense. I don't watch football, so I'm kind of just like going off what other people have told me. Probably shouldn't make references I don't fully understand. Anyway, we're going to ring the first Bell of Awakening. Once you ring both of these, you open the gate to Sin's Fortress. Then after opening the gate to Sin's Fortress, you can go on to Anor Londo and really get into the meat of the story in the game. But it takes a while. I'd say Anor Londo might actually be the halfway point of the game. It's amazing how much time you spend just trying to get to one place. Also, once you get to Anor Londo, you get a particular item that lets you warp between bonfires. So that's fantastic. It makes the game a lot more enjoyable to not have to walk everywhere I go. But regardless, we're not there yet, so one thing at a time. Now that the Gargoyles are dead, I'm a little disappointed Solitaire isn't... well, Solitaire didn't make it, so I didn't get my Sunlight Medal. I'm going to go ahead and talk to Oswald, the partner, who I think is probably my favorite character in the game thus far. He sells a really neat miracle that I haven't found a whole lot of use for. Karmic Justice, I won't buy it right now, but it's a defensive miracle that after you take X amount of damage, you just sort of, I guess, pop, and you'll feel like a shockwave around you that does a ton of damage to everybody around you. It's not that great, but it's nice to have. Sometimes it can really come in handy for PvP or for PvE, but frankly, it's unlikely I'll use it that much. Stock a couple indictments here in case somebody invades me and is kind of a jerk about it. That way I can, hopefully someone from the Dark Moon will get my vengeance. I probably won't buy Velka's Talisman. It doesn't have any place on this character. I might buy it for the sake of having it, but I doubt it. As you can see, a lot of the support items in this game are ridiculously overpriced in my opinion. That's a lot of souls for items that are very specific, and even wearing them I don't see a huge difference. The Poison Bite Ring is worth buying off Oswald if you're, trying to go to Blighttown because it gives you a ton of poison resistance, which is really all that matters in Blighttown. I'm just enjoying Oswald's voice and trying to fully explore his dialogue there before I move on. The next step is to access Darkroot Garden. The reason being there's a really twisted, overpowered... it's not overpowered. There's just a really nice place to farm souls there that kind of takes advantage of crappy enemy AI. Most of you are probably familiar with it. It's the Darkroot farming method, where you just continually kill the... There's 3 respawning enemies in the forest that, if you stand by the corner of the cliff at a particular spot, they'll just harmlessly jump right off the cliff instead of attacking you. It's like, if things are going well, it's 6,000 souls, maybe every minute and a half, maybe even a minute if you're really good at it. And that's a tremendous amount of souls. It's really repetitive, though, and boring. But also it serves another function. That's probably the best place to practice parrying for PvP outside of actual PvP, which is something I'm considering. So Elly will likely spend a lot of time in the forest just practicing her parry and just in general getting better prepared. To get to the garden, you got to get through this guy. Now, you have two options to do this. You can actually just run right past him. There's no fog door that prevents you, but I kind of like to take him out just so he doesn't have to deal with him later. It's a lot easier later on when you come back with better weapons. Oof. You know, I struggle with these guys a lot only because of the fact they can deal a lot of damage quick and they can break your guard. And I always had a hard time finding the opening. I've gotten a little better. I think I found like the ideal way to fight these guys, at least so far in my experience. I like to come here to his side and then just stay out of the sweep of that giant rod, the little staff he has. The trick is that tends to make him jump, or he can tail swat you. The tail swat doesn't do a lot of damage, but it tends to stun you, and once you're stunned, it's way easy for him to kill you. It's really unfortunate, really. Oh, there's the jumping attack once again. When farming souls in Darkroot, in the forest, Darkroot Forest and Darkroot Garden, it's very likely you'll get killed if you're in human form because people can invade you if you're in human form, and people invade like crazy. Members of the Forest Covenant, which is a covenant that guards the forest that you can join, they tend to... A lot of people tend to be members of that covenant because it gives them a lot of PvP action. So, if they have a ready PvP build and you're just trying to grind souls with the sort of the exploit, then you won't be ready. Previously, got hit, stunned, and finished off. Needed more poise for that one, or I just needed to roll instead of jamming my shield button. Earlier, before I was fighting the Gargoyles, I was discussing weapon choice. The reason I'm struggling to decide is I assumed the Bandit Knife had the highest backstab damage, but this is untrue. Aside from just very large weapons that I can't wield, the rapiers actually apparently give a huge bonus to backstab and counterattack, you know, the shield parry. So that's pretty exciting because they have a lot more reach than the daggers. They're a little slower, but they're just a more versatile weapon. The daggers, they're not bad at all, but I wouldn't say they're particularly versatile, so I don't know what I'll wind up with. I'll probably wind up taking... Because you want a variety of weapons on any character, PvP or PvE. There's people that are weak to lightning, people that are weak to fire, players that have different kinds of shield, protective against particular things. You just want a variety, so I'll ultimately wind up with a fire weapon, a lightning weapon, and a divine weapon, because faith's my primary attribute, and just, you know, a plus 15. But I'm not sure which is going to go to which. The Bandit's Dagger seems appropriate just to take to plus 15, and then I can enchant it with Dark Moonblade, or... Well, I'll probably wind up in Sun Brothers as my final covenant. For those of you that don't know, normal weapons, you can buff them with, like, spells like Enchant Weapon to make them more powerful. It's not something you do at a smith, it's actually a spell you cast, so... You can get tremendous amount of damage, because things like Divine Weapons, you know, that scale off an attribute, always do a crap ton of damage, but... Oh, tail swept me. They leave you unable to enchant your weapon. Most of the weapons that upgrade with... most of like the special unique weapons that come from boss souls and things like that can't actually be enchanted. You know, only like probably the best thing to enchant is like plus 15 weapons of some kind. And then divine stuff that you've enchanted to scale to an attribute, can't be enchanted with a particular buff or spell. Wow, that was the most complicated explanation ever. I apologize for that, guys. Let me make it a lot simpler. Certain weapons you can buff with a spell or an item or an ability. Those items are usually plain plus 15 upgraded weapons and non-boss weapons. Boss weapons you usually can't buff at all, and once you enchant an item at a smith to scale to a particular attribute, it can no longer be buffed. So plus 15 weapon buff usually hits really hard, because you can... the buffs you put on them usually scale to a particular stat. So Dark Moonblade, for example, which you get out of the Dark Moon Covenant, which you unfortunately have to be a member to cast, it adds a tremendous amount of damage off your Faith attribute. So if you take a dagger to plus 15, then enchant it with that, you just have a really killer Faith-based weapon. Then the Rapier, I'll probably just make a Divine weapon, so I don't need to buff it. Because the problem is you can only carry one stock. In the case of the Faith buffing spells, you can only carry one-ish stock of them. I don't want to put them in my my attunement slots twice, because I have a limited number of spells I can carry. So, in conclusion, I will probably only carry one stack, enchant my weapon once, and just try to get them. If it doesn't work out, then I'll have to resort to other means. So as a result, the dagger being the more specialized weapon, I'll probably make the buffable one, and the stock, which has more range, which is a rapier, by the way. It's like a little upgrade over the regular rapier. I'll carry the stalk, and that will be my divine weapon for my general battling. It sounds good in theory. I'll have to give it a shot and see how much it actually works, but, you know, that's what's going to happen. It takes me a long time to battle through this guy with such a weak-hitting weapon. You know, this is actually a really powerful early-game weapon. This game could be incredibly well, it is incredibly difficult, but it's even more difficult if you don't acquire things like a Stora Straight Sword or the... giving this guy the taunt there. If you don't have like a Drake Sword or the Astora Sword, if you don't have an early-game cheese weapon, these guys can be really hard. Now, this guy is here to serve as an impassable wall to keep you from coming here early game, I think. Or at least to discourage you from coming here, because this isn't the next most natural place in your progression. The next most natural place would probably be... oh... Blighttown. Yeah, through the depths to Blighttown. I probably won't show much of Elly's journey through Blighttown, only because I have a big 1 hour long commentary for Blighttown, and I don't want to put sort of repetitious, repeated videos on my channel. Because, once again, I don't really want to do a Let's Play of this game. I want to handpick the parts of the content I show to you guys. And I'll show most of this character's life cycle. I'm just going to cut out, like, the farming. Because between this video and the next, I'll probably do an hour's worth of farming in the forest to practice parries and just get enough money to buy all the stuff you need. Because, like, I don't need it so much to level up as to buy the really expensive spells and items early game. Because some of the spell vendors and item vendors will disappear due to story reasons. So if they disappear before I get everything I need, it's just really annoying. So I just like to take care of all of it at once. Can't even talk in this commentary. Wow. And that will allow me to just not have to worry about them disappearing later. Get a little soul there. Of course, dying to the pole demon back in the other room, that actually might have been a blessing in disguise. Of course, there's the hidden bonfire here that isn't so hidden because almost everybody knows about it, and there's almost always a bloodstain that points it out. But in case you guys didn't know, smash that wall to reach the bonfire. Super convenient. I lit the bonfire! Maybe someone gets that reference other than me. Do a little level up here. This character I said I would make a little more balanced. Normally I wind up with characters that have like mass endurance and mass of their primary attribute and no vitality, and that just results in a lot of like random deaths you probably didn't deserve. Like, you just got nailed by something. I'm trying to lower my encumbrance there so I can get a full speed roll. I'll wind up figuring it out. I don't think I figured it out in this video. I basically wind up putting on the pants in the armor as opposed to anything else. So you need 20,000 souls to purchase the item that opens this door. I farmed those earlier in the Undead Parish while I was getting a full boulder set. There's going to be a mage, an assassin wearing a fog ring, which makes them really hard to see, and this cleric up here. The guy right there at the Night Shield, the other fogged guy, he's a one-time appearance. He won't respawn like the other three. And here's the exploit to get you a ton of souls really quick. You just run here to this corner. There's really no need to flask up at a full life, but there's really no reason to not. And now I'm just going to chill here. Oh, they all surprisingly jump from the top. Now, they normally don't attack you from the front. I think it's an exception because I normally don't run into this guy. And I'm in a really bad spot. He actually randomly has me cornered. So I circle to the side and kick him off. Whenever people attack you down on this side where you don't want them to, like they actually engage you in fair combat, just kick them off the ledge. That's the safest decision. So that's 9,000 souls really quick. In the future, only get 6,000 per run. Head right up here. Pop the bonfire. Refreshes your enemies. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you after about an hour of farming 6,000 souls a minute.